So kind of start right into it. The introduction is really who you are and why you're running for school board.
Okay. I'm Julie Kazempel. I'm running for school board. I've been on the school board since January, but I was on the school board from 2016 to 2022. I ran again this year because I just kind of saw things were changing from when I was on before. We used to have very collegial meetings and we accomplished a lot of stuff. And I saw that some of the conversation, like I went off the board in 2021 or no, 2022, to some controversy, and I saw that was still continuing to be discussed. So I thought, well, I'll run again, and that way I can like face the music and deal and try and correct some of the issues that I in full accountability might have been a part of causing. So that's why this time I ran, and I'm running again just because I had a 1-year term that I finished up in. So this is going to be a 3-year term. But prior to that, the reason I ran for the board is actually, I think, an interesting story. I don't know how much time I have for this, Pete, but like,
Right.
my dad is remarried now, but he's a widower, and we're from Philadelphia. So when we moved to New Jersey, we lived off of Abington Lane, and we had a bus and everything. And when I went to middle school, they had just built Chestnut Ridge, which was within 2 miles of our house. And they told us that we had to walk to school. So if anyone from Township knows where like Abington Lane is to Chestnut Ridge, it's pretty far. Here's my mom, like stay-at-home mom, like she, quiet lady. She went out and got all these people to sign a petition and did all this stuff. And she went to the board meeting and she called down the board president. She said, could you, can I have a volunteer? And he came down and put a backpack on. She goes, could you walk 2 miles? He said, yes. She goes, okay, here's your lunch. Could you walk 2 miles? Yes. Okay, here's your gym bag. And she gave him like a couple things that you might have to go to school. And then he was like loaded down. And I think he was holding like my White Cliffs of Dover, like paper mache project. And then all of a sudden she goes, it's raining. She put up an umbrella and they gave us the bus.
Yeah.
So ever since then, I always remember my mom having the video on and hearing like the last names and the yes, no. And I didn't really know like what it meant. But then when my kids were little, I think the first time I got on the board was in 2016. So Erin was 10 years old, 10 years old. And Stephen was 7 and Kevin was 5. So I started to like notice more, which I think is pretty common, especially if you look at the people running this year. A lot of them have young kids, and that's when you start to get involved and pay attention. Yeah. So that's when I ran, was back then in 2015, which sadly my mom passed away right when I was running for Board of Ed. And I remember going into Postnet with my dad, and he was retired, and I used to go out with him and my son, and we'd walk and knock on doors, and he met Tom Fletcher, and that's how he got in the Rotary, Pete. And he got all his friends in the Rotary. So that's kind of a little bit about me and my family, I guess.
We appreciate that. So your kids are growing now. They're no longer in the school system, correct?
We are. So Erin is a junior at Rutgers Camden, and Stephen's a senior at GCIT. This is his. That's why I wasn't at the meeting last night. It was the opening night for his show. He's in the performing arts program. Yeah. And Kevin is a freshman at the high school. So I still have Kevin going through.
You still have Kevin in the school system. Yeah, because you're right. A lot of people running do seem to have younger children inside. So it seems like that's why they're running. So one of the questions I think is, you're on the board, right? So these questions are kind of made for people that weren't on the board. But when you see what's happening on the board, what do you think you can do to fix it personally?
Well, so it's what I would love to do is to have everyone just speak very openly about what's going on. Like right now, I would love to speak openly with you, especially because I know you've been involved and even critical of what's going on with the board. And I wish I could say to you, like, Pete, here's how it works. So I'm going to try and explain to people in a way that, like, being transparent comes with a cost, right? I could say something right now and someone could file ethics against me, or it could be added to a lawsuit or something. But I'm going to try and explain in the best way I can. And that is, our superintendent is currently suing us. And so that's a challenge because many people on the board feel conflicted on anything related to employment because of that. And so everyone's just sort of like treading very lightly, I think, on both all aspects of the issue because of that situation. And there's no way to really resolve that situation because we have to go through an insurance carrier for all of this. So an insurance carrier needs to say, what we do basically with legal counsel. So that being said, when I first got elected in January, I said to our superintendent, the best thing you and I could do right now is partner on everything, because people think that we're at odds, and it would be great to show that we're a united force. And I said the same thing to Carol, and Carol and I were working together. But I think the best thing to do going forward is to just stop anything that's fighting. And that's hard for some people to say. I'm not going to fight that fight. I'm not going to file these charges. I'm not going to just keep fighting. And I stopped doing that a couple of months ago. I just saw that that was futile. I just want to get things done. There's a lot of things that we need to get done. And I think if you just put your head down and work and show that that's what you're trying to do, it's the best way to kind of like get through a lot of these issues that we have. And if everyone's doing that, and it's been fraught with issues, but I can tell you that now it feels like everyone is working. So I've asked the public in the past, like, please give us some grace, while we're trying to do this. That's the biggest thing, because even if, let's say, all 3 new members come on, they still have their learning curve of how to learn how to be a board member, right? So it would be good to have someone on there, have people on there, which we do have, that can say, like, well, here's how it works. And I think I'm a good person to do that, in just how connected I am to the county School Boards Association, and I'm on the board of directors of the state New Jersey School Boards Association. So I'm very focused on becoming, people becoming a certified board member, a master board member, focusing on that professional development, which I've been really, really trying to get people to do. But it is difficult when we have outside influences, I guess I should say, that affect that work. It's just the nature of it, as you know, as a public official.
Listen, 100%. And there was people that when you try to prepare for stuff like that, people have questions that they wanted me to ask you, because Connie couldn't be part of this. So you were the only sitting board member that could be part of this. Mm-hmm. And some things, like I explained, that are things that you can't discuss. So It's not to discuss those things. We know that there's laws against that. And you're right. You could have ethics complaints against you. You could have other things against you. So you can't dive into those things. So although people have those questions, unfortunately, they can't have those answers now. Same thing with the council. So I wanted people to completely understand that there's things that you can't talk about, so they have to respect that. With school being 55% of people's taxes and going up 7%, what do you say to those people? Because that's the biggest thing I hear from people, right? That's put some people's taxes at the highest it's ever been. Mine are, right? I mean, obviously, if you just think about that, the increase of that 7% over that 2% cap, what do you say to those taxpayers? What are your thoughts on that? And do you feel somewhat responsible for any of that?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I was shocked when I got back on the board, because I think someone made a chart, it's floating around on social media, of like the years that I was president. I didn't do that stuff alone, obviously. I had, obviously, Mr. Bollendorf was there. We had Janine. We had Peg Meehan was a great BA. Janine is a great BA. And we had different board members coming in and out. So that's not because I was the board president. One person can't do anything. But my experience during that time was, we were always like, we cannot go over 2%. And there were definitely people that were vocal during that time from the public that were saying, this is how public schools are funded. You need to take the 2% every single time. You need to take the banked cap. Otherwise, you're going to have problems.
Sure.
So when people say some of what happened back then led to this, I'll take accountability in as much that we did not take everything that we were allowable to take. We did not go to 2% those years. There were years when we had banked cap. I don't know if you want me to explain what that is, but we had banked cap that we could have gone to 3%, 4%, 5%, and we didn't take it.
Right.
I think looking back, if we would have taken 3 or 4% each year instead of 2%, that might have helped the situation. But I was shocked when I got back in January to see the deficit. I couldn't believe that. And I've heard people blame some of that on the fact that there were instructional coaches and interventionalists that were paid through COVID money.
Right.
And so I think what happened there, I don't want to misspeak for the administration, but when those people were hired through COVID money, they were effective. And then after COVID, remember, we had all that learning loss.
Right.
So it was like those people were in place. I wasn't on the board at that point, but I guess they were like, we can't let them go because we have this learning loss. And so that was a failure of the state and federal government, in my opinion, completely. And so I don't even remember the original question at this point, but I'll just say that's my accountability that I'll take, is that we could have gone higher those years, and we were so focused on keeping it below 2%. which was probably why things were copacetic, because we never went above the 2%. But right now, the biggest thing we can do is advocate for this town at the state level. Because we continue to get cut every year in our state funding. I think 2 years ago, we were in the black with our state funding, but we've been in the red, for multiple years. And I try to explain to people how that funding works. So as the state aid goes down, the tax levy goes higher unless you're eliminating some of those expenses, which we really can't do because those expenses are operating these buildings, employing the staff. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's big ticket items. It's like 90% of the budget. So you can't get rid of that infrastructure. It would be like if a family bought like a large mansion with high taxes and a lot of cars, and then they had, God forbid, like a death in the family, and the stay-at-home mom had to continue to support it. That whole revenue stream is gone, and you have to either move out, and we can't do that, or get rid of some of the people that you're paying for. We can't do that. Or we have to find new revenue streams, and it's difficult to make income in a school district. And so then you rely on low power mode. Sorry, you rely on the local tax levy. But there are other things you can do other than relying on the tax levy, which I know you're aware of. I've talked about this before. I will give kudos to the municipal government and the economic development and the council and everything, because I see a ton of development coming in, and if all those businesses are paying taxes, that's where you guys help, because the ratables go up, which makes the tax levy responsibility go down. Yeah. So as long as we can promote businesses coming to this town, that's going to help the tax levy. But it's definitely a difficult situation, and we really need people who know what they're talking about and know what they're doing with finances to be managing this, to understand school finance.
Sure. So going back to that, so we were short last year about how much? Was it close to 10 million, 11 million? Was that sound about right?
Originally, I think the figure we were given was 19, and then when we got the tentative budget, it was around 10.
Okay.
And again, here's one of those things where there were things in there that were very, very significant staff-wise.
Right.
And a lot of us are from the school of you don't cut people, you cut things.
Right.
And so we had to make some really tough decisions then, because we didn't want to have mass layoffs.
Right.
We have to educate children.
Right.
So we slowly chipped away at it, moved things. Those conversations were difficult. People don't like having those conversations. People rightly so, administrators and stuff, they're going to fight for their programs. They're going to fight for the things that they're in charge of, as they should be doing. That's appropriate. But as board members, we're fighting to cut things so that we can keep bodies. So it's a very difficult situation.
So listen, a lot of people come up to me and they feel like the school board has become a circus. Has it become a circus? Again, do you think that the behavior of what's happening up there, do you feel like you play a part in that? Do you feel like this is just people being people? Do you think it's just passionate people? Why do you think people feel that way? I do hear it. And they say it in different ways. They phrase it in different ways. I mean, some people tell me they watch it as entertainment. Do you feel, again, that we're going in the wrong direction that way? Do you feel like that's unfair to say that? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't love when I go places and people are like, oh, Washington Township, we watch it like it's the Real Housewives. That's
right.
Really insulting, because if you're watching it like the Real Housewives, then that means it's too much about the people on the screen, right, as opposed to the issues. And right, my responsibility is, as the board leader, is to, I guess I should say, my responsibility is on paper that I should be controlling that conversation to a bit. And the problem is, people come to the microphone, as is their right. I don't want to ever stop anyone from coming and speaking to the microphone. But I can't stop anyone when they're talking. Right. I can't do that. No. And right, so usually the camera's on the person at the mic. But what you can't see is me saying to the lawyer, there's no way I can gavel this. There's no way I can stop this. Right. It's really, and so that's why I keep saying, please give us grace. And then I'm going to be totally honest with you, Pete. There are outside forces, people that don't even live here, that if those people stop being respected and informed by people within this community and within this school district, that to me is very toxic. Yeah. And until that stops, we can't move forward.
Well, listen, that's a fair thing to say, and I was telling that to Brandy as well. Is that you have people sometimes making comments on some of this stuff, and they don't even live in the town or have kids in the schools district, right?
Right.
So I think that's unfair sometimes, and I think you can't read those comments. But I think from which people are coming to me, I don't make it to every school board meeting. I don't watch every school board meeting, so I don't see every single thing that happens. I see, what people tell me, and then sometimes that's just their personal opinion of what's happening.
Hmm.
One of the things that people are bringing up is they feel like the union has been very influential on the school board. Do you think that's true? What is your relationship with that? Do you think that's putting it fair? And do you think we're putting the students and taxpayers first over the union?
Well, yeah, the union's strong in Washington Township, as it is generally most big districts. That's
Sure.
the case.
Yeah.
That's the case. I mean, that's just anyone who has worked in labor relations understands how collective bargaining works. But it's two different viewpoints. I've heard people say, "Why are you trying to please teachers? You should be worried about students." My personal mindset is the same that I would take in a family environment. Like if teachers are good and they're happy, they're supported, they're not overwrought with technology and being pulled constantly out of the classroom for professional development. Teachers need to be able to teach in their classroom. I mean, I think our teacher of the year is a stellar example of that. She won teacher of the
Yeah.
year,
Agreed.
and she could have traveled around, and she's like, no, I want to be with my kids.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Great point.
you know what I mean? Like, they need to
Yep.
be able to be in the classroom teaching, and they're not happy. They have morale issues. I've seen people come up to the microphone who were my children's teachers, who I
Yeah.
never thought were involved in the union, because you always have people that like, oh, they're the union people, right? And they're usually
Yeah.
like work at the high school,
Yeah.
because for a variety of reasons. But usually, the people that are mainly involved in the union are at the high school, and elementary school teachers don't have the ability to do that, just given the nature of what they're doing. But when you start seeing elementary teachers come out and basically crying to you and saying, we're overwrought, we're working night and day, and it's not even the money, if you listen, that they're complaining about. It's the respect. It's the things that have nothing to do with teaching in their mind. It's the
Right.
technology, the overuse of technology, the grading floor. Like, it's always, and I'm a teacher, so it's always like the
Right.
academic
So
stuff.
you can understand where they're coming from. But the question I
Totally.
guess we get down to is how do we change that though? I mean, even next year, I mean, do you have, and again, I'm not holding you to any numbers because I mean, I don't know myself. Do you have an idea of what, just if you had a ballpark it, do you have an idea of what the shortfall might be next year?
We
Just
haven't been
ballpark.
given that. No, we haven't been given that
It's
information
hard.
yet.
Listen, same
I,
thing for
I
the
mean,
town.
I haven't been given that information yet.
Listen, the town doesn't know either, right? So it's not a got you question. It's
Yeah.
more of that I don't know myself. We don't even know for our own selves. I mean, we probably can ballpark it, but we don't
Hmm.
have a definite number.
Hmm.
So what do we do? I mean, because I know as a town, you brought up some things that we're working on,
Hmm.
but how do we bring in those revenue streams? How do we change that idea? Because the town is in the same boat, right? And we got to go hand in hand, right? So and when
Yeah.
people look at it, a lot of times what people don't realize is when they get that tax bill, they look at us first. And we don't want to just throw it and say, well, it's the school board's problem because obviously we could add to that as well.
Hmm.
I guess my question to you is, what is that long term plan? What is the next year or the next 2 years or 5 years look like? How do we fix this going forward?
It's really for administration to make those recommendations. So I can't, they'll be considered what's called administering the schools. If I say, here's what I think should be done, I can't do that.
Okay.
So what I'll say is my personal opinion, in my experience working, and this is why it's so great and imperative for school board members to get involved at the county and state level, is you can see and hear what's going on around the state.
Yeah.
And so what I've noticed, some things that I've noticed a lot of districts doing is collapsing programs, changing their schools around. I think it's called cycling. I'm not saying this is a good fit for us,
No,
but
no,
I'm
right.
saying,
You're just saying what you've seen out there.
yeah, like, we have
Yeah.
to start looking at this stuff. Like, we have pre-K, kindergarten, and elementary. In all those elementary schools, they're bursting at the seams. The middle schools are bursting at the seams.
Right.
Maybe we look at changing that, and you know what I mean? I don't know the expense of that, and I don't know if it's feasible, but I'm like what I guess you would consider more of a big idea person.
Right.
And you need people like me, and then you need people that are the nitty gritty details. I
Right.
really think you need both
Agreed.
of those things.
Agreed.
And that's why, as soon as I got on in January, I'm like, let's sell the central administration building. Let's just sell it. We don't need it. put everybody over in the high school where you have room, get rid of that real estate, electric bill, everything that goes along with it.
Right.
And just move us into the elementary schools for our meetings and move your offices over to the high school. Or, maybe we can use that building as a pre-K building. So it's totally grant funded and everything is paid for in that building, the operating costs. So I think the only thing you can really do is, like, I learned this from my sister because she's like a Lean Six Sigma black belt. I don't know if people know what that is, but it's like a business designation. She's like a business muckety muck.
Yeah.
She is automate, delegate, delete if you're a
Yeah.
systems person. And it's difficult to do that in a school district. I think we're attempting to do that in some ways. But so, for instance, I know one thing is, like, people think, well, maybe we don't need all these coaches. We can automate interventions, academic interventions. That's been tried. It works for some students. Doesn't work for other students. But we might have to, start deleting some buildings and looking at reconfigurations and things like that. And the only way we can really do that is to start a strategic plan. We have to have a strategic plan. We hired a company. The last one we had was Joe Bollendorf, and our board worked on that. We had a strategic plan. It was a 5-year plan, so it's over now. We haven't had one since then. But that is very good for being mission oriented. She said, all right, let's just go to the plan. This is what we're doing. We got to redistrict folks. Everybody knows what's going on. Everyone knows what the money should be going to. There's no surprises. So, again, I don't have those answers. I'm not an administrator. I think our administrators are extremely experienced and intelligent and more knowledgeable than me. All I can do is bring back information and say, well, here's how they're doing it in this county or that county. Here's, they've got early childhood centers. They turn their middle schools into early childhood centers, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But we have to be doing those big sweeping changes. There's no little piecemeal that we can do anymore at this point.
So are we kind of, so at the lowest levels, right, when you turn to the kindergarten, we're obviously we have a school out now in Pittman, right, that we've rented. So we're filling up there, but as we go up, are we kind of thinning out? I mean, are we going to need more schools at some point? Are we going to have to build more schools or find more schools, like even like in the Pittman area? Is that something that's being talked about?
Well, the Pittman, so all the pre-K is state
Does that kind of work out
funded.
kind of well? Has that worked out? Again, I don't really
What?
know. Did that work out well with Kindle? I think it's working out pretty well, right? It seems like parents are very happy about the idea, and it's kind of turned out. I've been there a couple times, and I've had to. So it seems like it's turning out pretty well.
No, that worked out really well, and I can't talk about anything right now. Like, I will say to you that there definitely have been conversations, even to the extent of, pulling the trigger on things in terms of doing that.
Understood.
I can't talk about it, but
Understood.
But,
Sure.
but just, I think even like the layman would say, well, if you have all these pre-K kids coming in, that's great. It's bringing young families. Like, I'm so happy my house is worth over $200,000 more than it was when I bought it.
Right.
But those families are coming here for the free pre-K, for the free full day pre-K, the full free day kindergarten. But those kids are going to move up, to the already bursting schools.
Yeah.
And I was talking to another school board member at the convention last week who's in Black Horse Pike Regional, and he was saying, well, you guys are going to need another high school soon. And I'm like, what? No one has said anything about that to me.
No, that's the first I heard that.
Yeah, it's the first time I heard that, but I think that the conversations that we need to be having, if I'm reelected, that's going to be what I want to focus on. Academics are obviously my focus. I'm an English professor, but and I believe in public education. But in order to properly educate students, we're going to have a facilities plan and some major big level changes, and you guys are going to be a big part of that. We're going to have to really work with
maintenance, right? The maintenance on those buildings has to be coming up on some of those buildings. I mean, some of them are really starting to show their age a little bit, right? So I'd say it's something that we have to talk about that we haven't, right? So again, but go ahead, continue. Sorry.
I was just going to say, talk about showing the age. Have you been over to the high school and seen that mural is still on the wall in the cafeteria?
Yeah,
that was there from 1988.
Again, I mean, and the problem with these properties are, although we have a great maintenance team, buildings just wear out. It just happens. I mean, our municipal building has the same issue. It just wears out over time. No matter what you do, it's going to wear out. So time will always take its toll on things. So we kind of went over the time. So I went over break. So it's not a problem. Couple of so we didn't get to most of these questions, but I guess, Julie, tell people wrapping up why you're running and why they should. Early voting already started. Tuesday's election day. Why should they vote for Julie Condell?
Really, it's just the experience. And, I want to say to people, like, I apologize for anything I've done that has, caused people to dislike me or anything like that, because I really wish that people would give me another chance to see, because I am the most experienced person sitting up there currently. I've been president for, this would be ending up my fourth year, my eighth year running on the board, and I am, vice president at the county level, and I'm on the board of directors for New Jersey School Board. So if I'm not reelected, all of that advocacy goes away unless somebody else decides to do that. But that stuff takes time, and so I promise to always listen. And I'm a person where you're. I mean, you see me off camera, you see me in real life. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the same person
Yeah.
here, as I am everywhere. So yeah, of course, there's things that I do I'm not proud of, and I have been a part of, and I'm not, I'm not a robot, so I can't. I'm not, that's not my personality. I'm just like a teacher, But I just hope that people look to give me another chance, because in terms of any fiscal issues, I'm definitely, most experienced in working with the budget and keeping taxes low, with the exception of this year, which that was a budget that was handed to me two months after I got on the board.
Yeah, and I think that listen, that's a very fair statement. I think people have to realize that they have to realize that there is always that turnover, and that you are carrying things from previous administrations, right? So I know
Yeah.
people don't want to believe that, but it's true. And it's not like you're blaming the administration, but it's something where you're saying, hey, listen, this is what I was handed. When you touch upon some of the things you say that people don't like you, or that they're angry with you, or whatever it may be, does it really focus a lot on a lot to do with the superintendent? Do you think? Because I hear that a lot from people, and I've heard it from us. I spent a lot of time at our senior center. I spent a lot of time with other residents. This is where it seems to stem not so much everything that happened there. And I know you can't get into
Yeah.
some of that. Again, you can't really touch upon that. But do you think that's where it stems from? Do you think people
I
are
mean, I think yeah, I think it
they're
does. I
hit
think
people,
it,
not hit people? It's really that
yeah.
situation.
Oh
Is
yeah,
that
100%. And it does. And I think that people don't necessarily care about like the personalities involved. They care about if there was money. Like, I met someone at Meet the Candidates, and she's like, so much money was wasted on this. And it's like, no extra money was spent when the superintendent was on leave. Thank you to Annette Miller. She filled in. It was fine. We did not spend extra money paying. We were told at first we had to have another superintendent, and
Right.
then I actually found out that we didn't have to do that. We could do what Monroe Township did, which was just have the assistant fill in. So we quickly moved to that. So we didn't spend any money. And in terms of legal costs, that stuff is covered by insurance. As long as we all speak properly in public and don't do anything to not have indemnification, that is a $5,000 fee to the carrier. So there has been, and I really think that now, like, we need to move on. We need to move on from the situation. We need to pay out the miracles. We need to move forward and just, have a fresh start. So I think, yeah, a lot of people were really upset about that. And I don't think that social media really helped with that situation. I was
And it
presenting.
never will.
It won't. It never will.
So being balanced, I told Brandy the same thing, is that you have a lot of people say a lot of negative things online, not just about you, me, everybody who's there. And people have to realize, though, that you stepped up and put your name on a ballot and you decided to run.
Exactly.
And they have to put those personal, and again, some of these people don't even live in the town. So you have to realize
Yeah.
that not everybody is saying that stuff. And how many people really would come up and say it to your face, right? It's one of those situations where it's like, hey, at least I put my name on a ballot. I'm trying to help. I know you may not like my method, or you may not like it, or you're not going to like everything that somebody does ever. I don't care. There's even you go into presidents. No president has a 100% approval rating. There's just
Right.
there's no politician has a 100% approval rating. It just never happens.
Right.
And sometimes those same people who thought you did a great job last week don't think you did a great job this week, and
Sure.
that happens, right? So it's the only business and that works like that. So I love what you did here, but this week I don't think you did such a great job. And then
I mean, some of the people that run the forum, just to tell you real quick, Pete, in 2019 when I first got elected president, they were like, "We're so happy! Congratulations to Julie!" And it's like now some of them like hate me, and I'm like, oh, I don't know when or why that happened. I just know that I'm being myself all the time, and I'm just trying to do the best that I can. Like I said, I'll apologize to anyone I need to apologize to. I'm not above doing that, but
No, listen, forum, and again, some of those forums, and I've seen some of them, and some of them are just, the point is that we're all people, right? We're all part of the people party. We all have feelings, so sometimes things can go too far. I try not to get too wrapped up in that. I try not to read comments because at the end of the day, I don't really think that reflects what I'm trying to do. You may have not liked this law, or you may not like this idea, or whatever it may be, or the post, but you have to get over it to some degree. So I don't always think that's a fair. Yeah, and I think people who want to know need to go to a meeting before you go and read a forum. Maybe go to a meeting yourself. Sit
Yeah,
down.
thanks for saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
And go
really
back and
important.
watch. Go back and watch our meetings
Or
from
watch,
2019
right,
and 2020.
right. Or
I
watch
mean,
it
they
from
were
your home,
so.
whatever you feel
Yeah.
comfortable about, right? You know, you don't.
Yeah.
If you can't make it, you can watch it. But if you don't, it's like not voting. It's like people who complain about their leaders, but they don't vote. I mean, you really don't have a seat at the table if you don't vote, right? Maybe your candidate
Right.
didn't win, but you voted and you tried to get that candidate across the line. Unfortunately, it happened or didn't happen. But at least you took part in the process. If you don't go to a meeting or you don't watch the meeting, I don't know what kind of say you can really have in it because you're clearly
Yeah.
your state can't just be, well, let me just give my negative opinion about this person or that person or whoever it may be. So
Mhm.
really appreciate this. Is there anything that we didn't touch? There was a whole bunch of questions we didn't get to. Is there anything
Okay.
you wanted to talk about?
Listen, I mean, I appreciate the opportunity. I feel like you were really fair with the questions, and I appreciate that.
Everyone got the same questions. Some people got through them. It's only been Brandy.
If you can email them to me if you
Yeah,
want, and
they're,
I'll
they're,
answer them or something.
a lot of the questions were geared towards somebody who's not on the board. So,
Okay.
and I didn't want to change them for you versus anybody else. I wanted to give you a fair chance. I'll be honest with you. There's people that had things they wanted to ask, and I said, same thing in a council meeting. You can't discuss litigation. It can't be discussed. So be fair with who's coming on. She's coming on. Let's be fair. Let's ask her questions that, let's give her a chance to tell us who she's going to be. Let's give the other candidates a chance to tell us what they could do, right? So again, I hope you feel that this was balanced and that's what we were
Yeah.
going for.